some
Okay.
exposure. And the weekends on the boat.
You're correct.
or
That
hunting
is
or
it.
whatever with my dad. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just got quiet.
We are live.
Good morning. This is the Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee meeting, 9 o'clock, Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. I'd like to call to order and acknowledge that the press and public are aware and notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The first call to order is I'd like to introduce two new members, Mr. Douglas Kerr, which is our new city administrator, and on the ATAX committee, Ron Turnage, which is our new member.
Thank you. I would just say as way of an introduction, I've been with the city a long time, but never interfaced with this group really at all. So this will be a learning experience for me, and I look forward to it and hope we'll do a lot of good work together. So happy to be here.
Yeah, welcome, Douglas. Rod Turnage, I'm just thrilled to be part of the committee, and thanks for the opportunity to serve.
The next is our election, our yearly election of the chair and vice chair. I would like to make a motion to elect,
To make a motion to nominate.
to nominate Park Williams for our chairman of the ATAX Council.
Do we need a second?
Need a second?
Second.
Is there
Any other?
Are there other nominations?
are there any other nominations? Now let's look at the vice chair.
Well, hold on, you have to vote for that first.
Yeah.
A motion on the floor. So all in favor?
All-
Aye.
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 All right. And now you would do, now Mr. Williams.
Park, you get to take it over.
I have to abstain, I would assume, right?
No, you don't have to, but now you take over as doing the election of vice chair.
Okay,
So open nominations.
yeah, so open nominations for the role of vice chair.
I can continue as the vice chair.
Well, someone has to nominate you.
Oh.
So I nominate Rebecca as vice chair.
A
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll get better at this, I promise.
We'll be here to guide you.
The
Thank you.
next is approval of the
Well,
previous.
no, you're
So
no longer
let
chair.
Park take it over.
The shortest chairmanship in the history of the Accommodation Task Committee. Congratulations, Rebecca.
Rebecca and Ron, y'all can move your microphones closer to your, just like the lawyers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of previous minutes from November 4th, 2024. Are there any changes after review? No?
So moved.
Do I have a motion? So moved. Second?
Second.
Okay. Next up,
All
we
in
have.
favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Like I said, we'll get better, but it won't be instant.
No problem.
For today.
We'll be here.
Thank you. All right, now, next is the presentation of applications for the fiscal year 2026 State Accommodations Tax Funds. We have two applications that we've received so far. The first application is from Ms. LaVonda Brown on behalf of the YWCA Greater Charleston MLK event. Ms. Brown, are you present?
I am.
Great. Come on up.
Park, if you don't mind, I would, just for the benefit of the group and the audience, the process that we've traditionally used for this is we would hear presentations today. You will take that information back. You would generally make a recommendation at your at your April meeting. That recommendation would go forward to council, generally get rolled into their budget and become finalized typically in May, I think. Is that correct? May?
At the budget, yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of the process, just so everybody's aware. This is really just to hear the information today. There'll be follow-up at the next meeting, and then council action in the near future after that.
And we'll be setting the next meeting date before we leave today, so if you can stick around, we'll be able to, we confirm when the next meeting date is as
Okay.
well.
All right, perfect. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, well, good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm LaVonda Brown. I'm the CEO of YWCA Greater Charleston. Wow, I almost said Georgia. YWCA Greater Charleston, and YWCA has been serving the Tri-County for 117 years, so we're not a new organization by far. We have been celebrating and doing a tribute for Dr. King. This year, January, was year 53, so this is not new, but this event, this very special new event, the reception that we have been holding, 2026 would be the third year, so it's a very new event. But it is something that, because we are a Tri-County YWCA, and it really gives us an opportunity to stretch out into the community, and it also gives the Isle of Palm an opportunity to bring people onto the island that may not ordinarily venture onto the island and possibly even stay for the weekend. In year 2, we moved the event from a Thursday night to a Friday night. We doubled our reception attendees this year because of moving it, and we actually got heads in beds, as you all, I've learned that language here, that we were actually able to get 2 rooms for guests to actually stay on the island overnight. And so this is a part of our 6-day Martin Luther King Jr. tribute, and we believe we bring a lot of people to Charleston. We have events in North Charleston, downtown, and now in Isle of Palm. We believe that this event can continue to grow and that the Isle of Palm can become the destination for many of the folks that would be coming from outside of the Tri-County. We have great support from our sponsors, and we have great support from Explore Charleston and the Lowe's Company. And because of that, we are able to come before you today with a request of $10,000. That really helps us cover the logistics, make sure that we capture great photography and great moments that we can relive how much fun we had, and then also just, make sure that the event looks good and that everyone has a good time. So that's what I'm here for today, is to submit my request for $10,000 for the reception in hopes that we can continue to make this a destination, particularly in the month of January when it's, quite frankly, not a lot going on. And so we have an opportunity to capture that. And like I said, we've been doing the Martin Luther King tribute for 53 years. We bring a lot of people to the community, and a lot of our speakers come from outside. A lot of our sponsors this year, we had Google. They brought people from all over the country. They attended almost every event. They had a fantastic time at the reception. And also T-Mobile was our other largest sponsor. So we really think that this is important for the community, but also for the island, and we want to continue our partnership. Are there any questions for me?
How many people attended?
This year, 117. The first year, we had about 45. So we really did ramp it up. And moving it to that Friday, I believe, was a key factor in that.
And how do you limit the number? How do you decide on the number of people?
Well, the room has a capacity, so we don't go over that. We will only sell as many. We're able to use, because we have such great sponsors, a lot of our sponsors, this is a part of their sponsorship package. So they get, based on their level, they get a certain number of tickets to the reception. This year we had people who wanted to bring more staff, so they purchased additional tickets. And then we also have them for sale on our website so that it is also open to the public. But we do limit that, so we cut it off so that we don't go over the budget that our gracious sponsors have given us for food and beverage, but also that we don't go over room capacity. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question, Ms. Brown? In 2025, you have said that you all had 2 rooms and 4 guests.
Yes.
Correct. And that's all you had?
That's all we had.
For overnight stays on the Isle of Palm?
Yes.
Um,
In the first year, we had none.
Yeah, the first year there were none.
Mhm.
This year there were 2 rooms booked. And is it still an invitation-only private meeting as opposed to an open public meeting?
No, ma'am. So now it is, we do invite our sponsors, and they have certain tickets, but we did put the tickets on sale for the public, and we advertise it on our social media for the public.
So this is a public organization and not a private one?
Yes, that is correct.
Ms. Brown, is there a component to your marketing for 2026 that would involve, I know you had two heads in beds, and I do reverse that sometimes. I've said heads in beds, but it's heads in beds.
Heads in beds.
Is there a component to your marketing for 2026 that would encourage more people to stay? I think you mentioned in your application that the
Yes.
Friday night you thought would help. Is
Yes.
there anything else that you would do to help drive that ultimate goal?
Absolutely. We would do more advertising earlier. We did not advertise as early as possible. And then we'll also work with our sponsors to get the word out. And we do have a very active social media. We have very active, our e-blast and, all of our newsletters that go out have a very high click rate and open rate. And for those who understand what that means, basically people actually open our emails and they will actually click on links. And so we have a higher than industry standard for those open and click rates. But I do think that starting earlier and being here earlier and getting the approval earlier will help us be able to advertise that.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Are most of the attendees out of state or local?
Most of them are Tri-County or South Carolina, but many of them, as I mentioned, a lot of our sponsors have a countrywide or even worldwide reach. So like our speaker this year came from Nucor. Many of the folks on his team were here. Google brought folks from all over the country, T-Mobile. So we have a lot of folks that have staff from all over. And again, I think this is just an attractive thing that would, make someone want to leave their community where in a lot of cases it's way colder where they're coming from than it is here. And to be on the beach, in January for a lot of folks would be very appealing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee?
Okay.
Great. Thank you,
Well,
Ms.
thank
Brown.
you so much for this.
Okay, next up, we have Mr. Zachary Larry from the IOP Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Zach Larry, IOP Chamber of Commerce Vice President, resident of the island as well, over in Wild Dunes. Appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to speak here on behalf of the Chamber, and I hope to give you some good information. So the way I wanted to kick this off was just having a clear, concise, one-sentence outline of what the objective of our digital marketing campaign is, just so there's no question of what we're looking to do here. So it could be summed up as to use targeted digital marketing to promote Isle of Palms as a family-friendly vacation destination, attractive to both new and repeat visitation and business activity. Each word of that objective is carefully selected and has intent behind it, and you'll see that throughout the rest of the presentation here. So before I get into the specifics of what we did in the campaign, I wanted to touch upon what the target audience of the campaign is. So as far as people go, we're targeting online families, individuals aged 25 to the 65 and older demographic, as well as college educated. And what it means by targeting is essentially targeting an online presence. So online, your online activity kind of categorizes you in a certain way that allows digital marketing to seek out certain types of attributes. So that's what that means there. As far as the geographic markets that we targeted, the first ones that we did in this pilot campaign were Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Primarily the major metropolitan areas, so Knoxville for Tennessee, Atlanta for Georgia, Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte for North Carolina. And then again, I was touching upon you have an online presence whenever you're browsing online, and some of the targeted interests that we were able to hone in on were things like search results for summer vacations, travel, family vacation, looking for new restaurants, and actually some people search things as specific as South Carolina beach vacation ideas. So we're pretty optimistic that we can kind of hone in on that result specifically. So, just an overview of this pilot campaign that we used our initial ATAX funding to kick off. So, it's more or less a two-part initiative. The first part was deployment of geo-targeted digital ads across social media. Again, highlighting Isle of Palms as a premier family-oriented vacation destination, very welcoming, and then really emphasizing the island experience. I'm sorry, can you go back to that real quick? Just for reference, those three images there are examples of the creatives that people would see online, as far as when they're on their social media platforms. They'd see those and be able to click through them and get to the Visit IOP website, run by the chamber. So, overview of the first part of the pilot campaign. Again, it was targeted advertising. The objective of it is to lead traffic generation to the website. Once users are on the website, they have a assortment of online resources that we put together in order to support island businesses as far as what's going on, where to go, places to see, etc. But also to be give the ability for the visitors to be able to kind of vision what their experience on the island would be and start to brainstorm plans. And we felt that having that engagement further solidified their connection to the island and made it more effective for us getting visitation based upon they're not just going to the website, they're actually going and then coming here as well. I mentioned there's kind of a twofold approach to our campaign. The second was a promotional giveaway. So one lucky winner, it's basically a sweepstakes. You enter and you have a chance to win a free stay here on the island. This was examples of the creatives that we used for that. Very similar to the other, except it honed in on the getaway. Again, you click through it and it brings you to a registration page and allows you to enter the sweepstakes. The second fold of the approach was very successful in my opinion, and it's objective, but almost 4,000 entries in a month as far as people that were interested in doing this. 3895, I think it was. So not only did this demonstrate efficacy of this approach to digital marketing, but we also were able to gather pretty valuable data points from this. So part of the registration collected data points like, where is the person from? Have they been here before? If so, how many times? And then contact information. You'll see a little further into this that we intend to use that data to continue to shape this campaign. So we don't intend to just set it and forget it. This is a dynamic approach. We want to take incoming data, make adjustments, make sure we're most effectively deploying funds that we receive. For this next part, I'm going to let Brian take over and just kind of talk about the data results here.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Hoffman. I'm the owner and principal of Miles Marketing Agency, the subcontracted partner who helped execute this campaign along with Laura and her agency on the creative component. So what I wanted to cover real quick are some of the exact details of the technical side of the campaign, of the pilot campaign that was launched with the initial ATAX funding. The two primary platforms that we delivered ads on were Facebook and Instagram, so Meta only. It was not through Google's search platform or through any of the Google platform, which we do plan to include in kind of a longer term if we get another round of funding here. We launched the campaign December 1st, ended at February 1st. The direct amount spent through the platform on actually delivering ads was $10,676. So right at our target budget right there. And with that component, the kind of most impressive figure right there is the total number of impressions. If you're not aware of what impressions are, it's every time eyeballs are laid onto an advertisement, whether it's a billboard or on your mobile marketing device here. So over 1.2 million people saw the advertisements in those geo-targeted areas that we had previously kind of just reviewed right here. And going back to that, the source for those and the reason behind all of the primary geo-targeted areas were based on actual bookings and data obtained by Rod and a couple of other people that provided us with city and state of location, or city and state of previous renters in their properties. So that's why we decided to go with those certain geo-targeted areas. From that 1.2 million of people seeing the ads, we had engagements, or clicks, most commonly referred to, of 27,843, meaning somebody saw an advertisement, saw one of those creatives on their mobile device or on their desktop or laptop computer, and then engaged and clicked into the ad itself. Now, that call to action, that promotion for the getaway, that's a very strong call to action. So that 1.2 million people that saw the ad were interested in summer vacations already, South Carolina beach ideas. So we delivered that ad to them. We provided them with a very strong call to action to engage with our ads, and then they clicked through to it. So 27,800 clicks, a little bit more than that. And of that 27,000, that's where Zach got to the point of, well, we presented them with a conversion form or lead form for the sweepstakes, and of those 27,000, we had over 8,900 that entered their information in to enter that sweepstakes at the chance to win that for the call to action for them. So the conversion rate, which is leads or the people that filled out the form to clicks, was 13.9%, and we were very technical on that and giving you the exact figures because that conversion rate of people that got to the website and completed the form is exceptionally strong. That is a very high, from an engagement, just from the click to entering their information and agreeing to it, that is a very strong conversion rate right there. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass it back over to Zach. Were there any questions about that?
I have one question. The conversion rate being high at 13.9, what would you say would be kind of the average that your firm normally sees?
With hospitality and tourism, which is actually my college degree here, knowing what that comes from, probably 7 to sometimes 10% would be the median click-through rate. So again, we surpassed that. But again, that's the strength of the call to action too. That was a very generous, very engaging call to action, and I do suggest that that's something we kind of, that I think we're going to continue with additional funding in our messaging.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have added no value. I would have been reading off the slide there, so I was happy he was able to jump in on that. So what I wanted to do, though, is take it a step further and really hone in on what does that mean and translate to as far as revenue to the island businesses as well as the city. So what we did is we took that lead amount, we took a very, very conservative number of 7% lead conversion to actual visits. Applying that comes out to 272 visits. We utilize the resources, from the chamber and island businesses as far as average spends on a weekly visit or trip. Put that all together and came out to 5,930 as far as a revenue per average visit. So essentially, $15,000 in ATAX funding helped us to generate an estimated, 1.6 million in revenue for IOP businesses. And then to just take it a step further, what does this mean for the city? It's obviously beneficial to businesses, but what's beneficial to businesses is beneficial to the city as well as far as tax revenue goes. So I took some of the figures that we calculated, applied their respective tax rates to each of the verticals, and ultimately comes out around $185,000 of estimated tax revenue that can come from $15,000 of ATAX funding for us to deploy here at the chamber. So, the big takeaway is what we were able to put together with this pilot is replicable, it's scalable. Essentially, more funding allows us to have more reach, and ultimately more money for IOP businesses and the city as a whole. this whole presentation so far has been about what we've done. I want to touch on what the future objectives would look like. So I talked about scaling, expand. That's a twofold approach. One is expanding into new geographic markets. As he touched upon, we were able to get some data from some of our island businesses as far as what would have been successful markets where people are visiting from, and we use those for our initial pilot, as far as North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, et cetera. We'd like to expand into some different markets to help encourage more first-time visitation. We'd also like to continue promoting in these already tested areas to encourage not only new visitation but repeat as well. We'd like, through this process, we plan to stay very closely connected with IOP businesses and city government to make sure that our messaging, our intents are clear, that we're promoting IOP in the way that it needs to be promoted in the most effective way, and attracting visitors that make sense for here at the island. We're a pretty unique island. It's got a culture to it and ambience to it that is different than maybe some spring break destination type locations, and we feel that keeping things very family oriented and targeted is not only beneficial to keeping that vibe in place, but also families tend to spend more money with island businesses, and they tend to remain here on the island during their trip, and so we think it's beneficial all around. And then, as I said, we're going to continue to use incoming data to make adjustments when needed. So if we see that a certain market is tearing it up and another one's not, we're going to shift more funding to that, and et cetera. Or if we're not getting much of a response in another, we're going to look into why, maybe make some adjustments, maybe just chalk it up as an L and move on to the next area. But overall, we intend to be very dynamic in that respect. So ultimately, while we're here today, we respectfully request $50,000 in additional ATAX funding. Again, we've been able to present and demonstrate a proof of concept of a scalable and replicable model that if we add more funding to it, we can generate revenue generation, tax revenue generation, excitement around the island, continue to guide the visitation and visitors that residents and businesses are looking for here. I think we can be a major part in that. And again, with the $15,000 that we were fortunate to have to kick this off with the pilot, we had a pretty strong proof of concept. So this additional funding would allow us to scale and grow those numbers I presented. I appreciate your guys' time. If you have any questions. Yes, ma'am.
What is your vision of winter marketing? It seems like the summer there's not the problem in filling the, I hate to say heads in beds, but we do have a problem in the winter where there's very little to do here. And do you see any businesses that we can add that would draw the people here in the off-season as opposed to going to Mount Pleasant or whatever? Is there shopping here that we can be unique for art galleries,
Sure.
higher-end shops or whatever?
To make sure I'm understanding, so are you talking more for outsiders coming here or for people that are here during the winter to generate more business on them?
People that are here that have lodging here, just keep them on the island
Got
as
it.
opposed to going into Mount Pleasant to shop, that they can get a lot of their needs met here as opposed to leaving the island,
Absolutely.
especially in the winter.
Yes, no, absolutely. And that's actually been one of the major focuses of the agenda of the chamber, has been determining how can we best support, like you said, people can't even keep up in the summer. It's crazy here, it's busy, but come winter time, for whatever reason, there's been a cyclical nature to the island business cycle, and we at the chamber feel that through promotion of certain events, it's It can be related to what I presented today. Like, we can use digital marketing to, target local audiences and promote engagement on the island. I don't know that it would be part of this type of campaign, but it is part of a lot of the initiatives we're doing at the chamber to, again, make it a more rounded year, have more events that make sense here, continue to, and as an island resident, I'm kind of speaking on behalf of it. I don't feel that since I've been here, has been a great opportunity to do a ton in the winter. It's almost like, businesses also check out a little bit, or they, take their foot off the gas, and, locals generally, like you said, they go to Mount Pleasant, they find things to do. So I think there's a ton of room for improvement, and that is one of like the top 2 or 3 items on the chamber's agenda right now.
And another question, how do you differ, how's your marketing different from the Charleston Visitors Bureau, the CVB? How is it differentiate from the CVB? I mean, what can you do
Yeah.
better than CVB? What can they do better than you?
Maybe just out of respect, I won't say better, but we're the Isle of Palms Chamber of Commerce. Our primary objective is supporting our island businesses. Everything we're doing, digital marketing, is targeted at the island. CVB, I believe, has more of a broader reach. They're targeting activity and tourism in Charleston and surrounding areas as well. Every cent that we get is put right toward targeting Isle of Palms and our businesses.
Rod, any questions?
Yeah, I just had one. I mean, kind of similar to Rebecca's question. 50,000 is requested. How would that be allocated over the course of a year or the months? In other words, if it were strategic, could we allocate maybe a larger portion of that to those winter months, softer months, to, like, obviously your campaign did well in winter, right? So I was just curious if there was a way to allocate it. This may be more a question for Brian around, maybe you don't divide whatever the funding comes out to be potentially by 12, right? Evenly over each month. Maybe it's more heavily weighted for some of those winter months. Is that something that you guys have the capacity to consider?
Yes, and I agree. Brian would probably have a little more insight on a deeper level. As far as when and how things are deployed, summer months could be when people are looking to come in the winter. And winter months is when they're planning their summers, et cetera. So I think it goes hand in hand with how we're going to assess the data as it comes and see what makes sense. Again, if it makes more, if we're seeing that in the winter, we're getting a lot more engagement because that's when people are looking to come here, and we're seeing in the summer it's not so much. One might say, all right, well, let's put it all into the winter. One might also say, well, what's different about what the online, the people looking online are doing in the summer versus winter, and maybe we can shape some things in a way that generates more business in the winter. I think that there's a way we could do that, but that would absolutely be something that I would divert to the experts on, and just trust the data on.
And by driving them to the website or the Visit IOP, we're able to get more data to see what they're engaging with on the website, see what they're clicking on, see when they're, booking. We can see a time frame of, if we know when they're booking and when that's been done or when they clicked on the link, we can then say, all right, well, typically, families are planning 2 months out prior to the vacation, which means we can take that amount, first probably divide it by 12, but then we kind of build our own, fluctuating curve of when that increased spend would start. From my previous experience in managing digital marketing campaigns, you want to be the first thing they see. You don't want to wait until the day or kind of the month when they start booking. We would want to probably have a 30-day lead time, so that Isle of Palms and the brand is something that they see before they even say, you know what, let's start planning our vacation, or let's try something new this year. So we can easily, at the drop of a hat, change the amount budgeted and the amount spent per month, per week, per day.
So just to clarify, by going to your website and looking at it, you actually see that they are booking on Isle Palms?
We see that they are clicking through the links on there.
Okay.
Point. So we don't have the reservation function right there, but we can see which links are most engaged with and where they get to that. Now, if it goes from the Chamber of Commerce or the visitiop.com to another website, I cannot confirm if they've booked at that point, but I can tell you which link they traveled through after their visit.
And to that point, being the IOP Chamber of Commerce, we do have access to the island property management companies, so I'm pretty confident we can deduce. They can ask, hey, how'd you find out about us? And we find it. They say, oh, well, I went to the Visit IOP website, et cetera. So there are ways, I believe, even though it steps outside of what we can see through what he can see. I think we have enough resources where we can deduce that information.
So of this $50,000, is that your total budget for this program? Or is the chamber kicking in some chamber money?
Chamber's kicking in what we can. This is heavily impactful, though, as far as our ability to really scale. And again, I think the proof of concept was very telling. I was honestly surprised with how positive the results were. And that was the first, there's only room for improvement from trying it the first time. So I think that, for being the first effort and the proof of concept, I thought the conversion rates were remarkable. And I think we can scale pretty quickly and generate a lot of revenue for the city.
I know this was a pilot program, but I would love to see you guys be able to dig deeper into the data as it comes to the individual members of the chamber, right? So I know that'd be difficult to figure out if somebody that goes to, I won't name a restaurant or whatever, but to a restaurant, if they ended up there because of they visited Visit IOP. But for me, the appeal of this all along was the fact that we are trying to help individual businesses thrive during the winter months and then maybe survive during the summer months just because of the way things are here. So if you don't have that, I would like to see that where we can have data to the best of our ability on how individual businesses are, so if they're getting click-throughs from the chamber website, like I want to go to a nice restaurant here, I want to, do something at Wild Dunes or whatever it might be, it'd be interesting to me to see how granular we can get on that. Because for me, selfishly, I want a restaurant to be here in January that I can walk into, and then I want them to really make their cake during the summer when they can't help themselves, right? So to me, that's the genesis of this for me was helping these individual businesses get through the softer months and be here for the summer months when they're needed.
No, absolutely. And without getting too technical, there probably is a way where we could have links to certain establishments and be able to tell, the click-throughs on theirs, I would think, huh?
And 100%,
Yeah.
we could have the directory page on there, and we can see how many times those links are clicked to get there, but also if restaurants and businesses wanted to provide view-only access to their Google Analytics, I'd be more than happy to do that. That way I can see how many clicks and how many referrals, as they're called, came from visitiop.com.
Right.
That's referral traffic, that's, we did paid social, there's organic, but the referrals would be a very strong, data point for us to say, look, the traffic we directed to your site. But again, that only goes so far because I'm not going to the website to get the address. I'm going on Google to say, how do I get to this location, this restaurant? Which branding is a lot more difficult to quantify a lot of the time. But we do have data points and we can easily access that information. Also, if other businesses wanted to provide you only access, that'd be extremely helpful.
I just think it's a good way to bring it full circle, so it makes sense. So we're sitting here this time next year, if you guys are given funding, we can sit around and say, okay, these businesses definitely benefited through this, because that's selfishly, I think the CVB is going to help bring people here along with you guys. What they have to do here, I think, comes back to the chamber. So I want to make sure we can see that in the data to some extent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
One-
Go ahead.
So when we get an ask for funding, and we've asked the YWCA, is the event open to the public and whatever, who can join, who belongs to the Chamber of Commerce? Can I join?
Yes, ma'am.
But I don't have a business.
We have a non-business membership.
Okay, so
It's our
it's open to the public, okay.
Yes, ma'am. And we actually encourage it because, again, Isle of Palms is very unique. I've been members of a lot of chambers of commerce, and there's not many that I would encourage non-business members in. When it comes to Isle of Palms, again, there's a certain ambience, there's a certain culture that, vibrance that's maintained in the island, and part of that critical component of that is residents. And its residents, as we're talking about here, are part of the year-round business cycle, whereas tourists are going to be a little more cyclical in the summer. So as far as the chamber's concerned, we're highly encouraging of non-business members to be a member.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you, Zach. Sitting around waiting for the chair. Okay, so next up is the review of the financial statements with Director Deborah Hamilton.
Sure. I'm going to cover the 8 months through February the 28th, and you should have this information in your packet. On our balance sheet, our cash and investment balance has grown by $364,000. That's 6.2% over the prior year this time, as well as our fund balance has grown by $644,000. That's 11.8% increase from February of '24. On our revenue statement, we received $2,144,000. This is 57% of our FY25 budget, so the funds are coming in strong. This FY25 includes, the budget includes grant revenue of $376,000. We have deferred that to FY26, so we will not be spending that money. And once we get to the budget, you'll see that that has been rebudgeted for FY26. For our expenses, year-to-date, we've spent $930,000, but on page 24 of the packet, 23 of the packet, we budgeted a drone for the police department. As of today, that expense is over budget, so before we end the year, the committee will need to approve that overage from 12,182. The budget was 11,500. There was also a boat that was budgeted for this year, for a rescue boat for the fire department. That we did not get the grant this year, so that will be deferred to FY26. However, they have requested a high water vehicle instead, so we'll see that when we cover the budget. The committee said that they would recommend getting one or the other. If they get the grant for the boat, then to purchase the boat. If they don't get the grant for the boat, then to purchase the high water vehicle. The construction of the waterway path, some of those expenses will take place in FY25, but the majority of those expenses will be deferred to FY26. On your page 26, this shows, this is just the detail for the revenue that we saw on the revenue page. You see how it's coming in from September, and then we got a payment in December. On page, I guess it's page 27, I have a new sheet because it looks like, it looks like on your copy, the last line was cut off. So the FY '25 section of total state ATAX transferred to Charleston CVB, the 30%, that line was cut off on the copy that you have. And this is just a detail that shows the percentage year over the year. And for the for the first 2 quarters that we have received, we are tracking 8% over prior year. That's all I have for the financial statements. Are there any questions for that section?
Any questions? Thank you, Deborah. Okay, next item on the agenda is old business, which there's none listed. Next item is new business. So the first subsection of that is the consideration of the fiscal year 26 budget for state accommodations tax funds. I don't have a name beside that, so would that be Deborah?
So, yeah, we're going to let Deborah go through the detail, but I would just say that this is actually coming to you all really before it's been to council, just by the way these meetings have been lined up. They're going to see this for the first time this afternoon. So still very preliminary in nature, subject to change. It's a good time if you all have feedback on it, get it now, because you're literally kind of ahead of the curve with this. So so take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. We're ahead of the curve on it.
Great, thank you.
Okay. For the revenue, we normally budget, I think 95% of the last 12 months. This year, we're budgeting 98% of the most recent 12 months. And that is factoring in the fact that we anticipate additional funds from Airbnb. They have not been paying accommodation tax in the past, but they will, the suit was settled, and so they will be paying accommodation tax moving forward. So we increased that percentage to factor in some additional revenues from them.
I'm sorry, Deborah, what was the effective date of that? When do we start seeing that revenue from Airbnb?
Well, so there, and this is, a long and drawn-out story, but we will get a lump sum at the end of this month, we expect, and then it will start kind of immediately on the heels of that. So pretty much immediately.
Great.
And it's not that we didn't see any accommodations tax funds through those properties, but we saw way less than we should have.
And then that'll be monthly moving forward after the lump
Correct.
sum. Got it.
Well, we
hope.
We hope.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there, I'll ask one more question on that. Is there any accounting for, I think that there's a trend, CBB probably knows better than we, but there's a downward trend in just overall accommodations revenue, right? So we're going up on our budgeting number, but the overall trend is down. Is there any concern there? I would have concern that we're budgeting 98% of a number that's probably going to drop year over year just based on trends. So is there a risk of over budgeting there is my point. If we're down 10%, because that's just the way the nature of the beast, then are we setting ourselves up for failure? Not failure. We're putting ourselves at risk. My apologies for the strong
language. To be a little
language.
aggressive, yes. I understand your question. That is a good question, and it's valid. We did take a look at, took a look at 2023 and 2024, and there was a drop in 2024, but we feel that the additional revenues that we will receive from the Airbnb that we had not received in the past, or the little that we had received in the past, will kind of make up for that shortfall. And this is not, it's only 98% of the last 12 months. Now, we can change that, but we felt like we were kind of trending that we were kind of in the right area, but
Yeah.
I mean, we can.
And we did look pretty closely at we clearly had big years, 22, 20, really 21, 22, have come down, but we think that it's just in kind of looking back, we think we're at a pretty flat level. So coming down slightly and knowing that we're going to have this influx of Airbnb money, we felt like 98% is a good number, but, it is a bit of a guessing game in terms of what the future holds. We have generally budgeted very conservatively, and I think that raises questions too. If you're too conservative on the, we're conservative on the revenues and we're generous on the expenses. And we've heard feedback that let's try to be a little bit more realistic and not always undershoot. So this really is kind of our best guess of what we think where we're going to be.
Okay.
And council will be, this is a point that they're really going to focus in on too. So
A lot of businesses look at for whatever reason, look at 2019, like pre-COVID as sort of a baseline. I know we're getting further and further away from that, but it might be interesting to just bounce it against what because that was sort of normal for years. And maybe look at it, rather than a 2-year or 3-year running trend, look at like a 5-year running trend and see if we can see, like I said, more than 5 years now. Because I don't know how close to normal we are at this point in time.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't know if I did that on this fund, but I have done that, taken that 5-year pre-COVID, because one of these schedules actually shows that, and it looks like we were trekking to increase over 2019, and we were kind of trekking upwards. There was, if you look at, let's see, what schedule is that? There were, on this schedule, you can see some of the huge swings, but if you kind of average these out, these last from 19 to 25, that's a substantial increase
Great,
in
thank you.
percentage, averaging. For most of the expenses kind of remain the same. We have, a few transfers that we normally have for this department, for this fund. Like I said, I'll just go through the main things that normally affects this fund, and those are capital items. So for our police department, we have a total of $66,000 in for capital items. That includes the ATV at $22,000, a computer server at $18,000, a speed radar and trailer at $20,000, and they are paying for 1/2 of the public safety gate at $6,000, so that's where that $66,000 is coming from. For the fire department, as mentioned, they originally had a rescue boat budgeted for $300,000, which was being split between funds, and this fund was taking $100 of that. We have replaced that with the high water vehicle and the equipment to be used for the high water vehicle. That's at $121,667. The equipment, a portion of the equipment for that 1/3 of the equipment is $10,000. And they're also looking to purchase a thermal imaging camera at $2,000. So we're requesting $157,000 in capital expenditures for the fire department. The drainage,
I would say
that was line 43, the one I just mentioned. So the line 43 on the explanation page of what's in that line, you can see that it's detailing exactly what I just said.
I'm going to stop you for 1 second.
Go ahead.
And, I did myself the services of going back and read the legislation again today, because it's a bruiser. And there's one area in particular as it relates to fire and police and things along those lines. There's a mention in here. Based on the estimated percentages of cost directly attributed to tourists. And so one thing it's kind of come to my head is that, okay, are we, and this is obviously something for the council to address as well, but are we there's a certain amount of the money that can go towards the general operating fund, and we all understand and we agree to that. But is there any, is the fire department, the police department come to us for high water rescue or whatever it is there any mechanism to measure that as a percentage that helps tourists? Like, I'm thrilled that we have high water rescue, but I just want to make sure that we're kind of staying within the confines of the way the legislation's written.
So we talk a lot about kind of what the size of the city staff, city facilities would be if it was just the 4,000 residents that lived here. And we definitely are sized for, the busy parts of the year. So, and we've always had estimates that the population swells to somewhere around between 15 and 20,000 in those really busy times. So we think that of our overall expense, probably a very high percentage could be contributed to the fact that we operate and we staff based on the busy times of the year. So we could certainly give the percentages, and let you kind of look and vet through whether or not you think it's a justifiable number. But we have always, again, kind of felt like we're very conservative in what we're paying for with that money, based on the fact that we kind of have to build ourselves for a population that's 3 times the size of the permanent population.
No,
That makes sense.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When I think about this this is like a variable fund. I mean, if nobody came and showed up, we wouldn't have any of this money to spend, right? And so I just want to make sure we're not putting things in the budget that we can't support if we don't have the revenue. Going back, I'm very conservative when it comes to budgeting, as you hear some of my comments. But I just want to make sure. And it sounds like you guys are as well.
Yeah.
But it's just something I want to make a note of.
Okay.
Thank you. Under the Public Works area, line 51, page 30, we are budgeting for the drainage project, the $1,020,000, and that's 51% of the total project. There will be some grant funds to offset that, which is, I think, $980,000. So 51% of that $980,000 will be included as revenue to offset part of that cost. For the Recreation Department, on line 58, that $65,000 includes a scoreboard with failure, as well as a percentage of the tennis courts to reconstruct the tennis courts. That total cost to reconstruct the tennis courts is $190,000, of which $45,000 has been allocated from the state aid accommodations tax fund. For Front Beach, line 73, that $95,000 include benches, new benches on Front Beach, as well as the sidewalk repairs of $70,000 on Ocean Boulevard. The marina still has, that is line, oh, there's a transfer. So some of the transfers are from those are on line 84. And there are, all the descriptions of what's being transferred is on the details section of the next page on 31 of 84. And these are kind of the same number of transfers that were budgeted in FY '25. They include, you can see, part of the public relations salary, along with, 3 firefighters, 2 paramedics, police officers, and so on and so forth. So year over year, we're budgeting 3.794 for FY '26 and FY '25, there was a budget of 3.796. So we're actually using, or, I'm sorry, the fund balance. The fund balance is decreasing by about $200,000. So the net effect from budget to budget is about $281,000. And currently, since we were talking about the request for funds, we still have $50,000 in there, same as we did for FY '25. I guess if that number needs to increase or change, we would need direction or suggestions from the committee.
That is the money for these types of applications. That's the $50,000 you're referring to?
Yeah, it's still 50,000.
Okay.
So if they can recommend that it increase or.
I know that there was, Barb, help me remember, the other group that couldn't make it, that didn't make their application in time.
Mary Alice.
Mary, yeah. I know that, I think she had something going on, and so my assumption is that she'll be coming back in. And even today, we've got 50,000 plus 10,000, so we're at 60 without even knowing about that. So I think that we should be contemplating a larger number.
Or adjusting what they're asking for. I mean, no.
Sure, we can cap it for sure, but I mean, I think that, I would not necessarily cap it, we can budget for 50. I would recommend that we put a larger number, that if we don't utilize it, that's fine, but if we get something that is moving to us, that we should have the money in the budget, and if we don't use it, I think that that's okay. Now, that goes against the conservative nature that I've alluded to earlier, but I do think that what like Ms. Brown brought to the table, like the Chambers brought to the table, are great ideas, and I would like to have the money available rather than saying we're already sold out before we ever even approved the budget.
Did we have any left over from last year?
I think we're right on it last year.
I don't think we had any
Year
left.
prior, I think historically we had, I
But
think
we
last year.
can raise the
Well,
amount.
council can. Council has traditionally allocated 50, but that's a number that they set. They're in their budget cycle now. They could adjust it if they choose to. So you all could make that recommendation. And I think the chamber actually, I had in my mind it was 55.
I had 55 on the application, but it was 55 in the
It was
in the
50 in the
presentation.
presentation.
That's what it showed in the, is your request for 50 or 55? I think in the application it was 55. Okay. Okay. So we're at 65 now, and we haven't heard from the other potential applicant. So to me, we ought to make a recommendation to the council that we increase that number from 50 to 75 to give us some working room. It's not money we're spending, it's just a budgetary number.
Is that an official motion you're making on the floor right now?
So moved.
Motion, okay, to increase from 50 to 75.
That's
you
right.
said. Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I would, we haven't talked about this, but I would assume kind of bouncing off that or from that recommendation, you all are okay with her request coming before you at your next month. She missed the deadline. I think we've told her, stand by and we'll be back in touch. Would you all like to have her present in the April meeting?
Well, I personally would. It's a great event. It puts lots of heads in beds, and so it really ticks off all the boxes of what we're supposed to be doing.
That's correct. I think she had a personal issue that she couldn't make the deadline, and so I think we should give some grace there.
Okay.
Allow her to present in April.
We'll pass that along.
Do we have an idea of what she asked for last time?
Was it
I don't,
30,000?
10?
She was awarded 35 last
She
year.
was awarded 35. So
Well,
that,
again, all this is negotiable.
yeah, I don't know that if we're trying to go kind of all in on what's in front of us, if the 75 is going to get us there, if she is going to
But
request.
again, you can reduce it. I mean,
Yeah.
is it a negotiating tactic to ask for 55, hoping that you're going to get 35? I don't know.
Right. I mean, to me, if a 50% increase is fairly significant year over year, so I think we ought to ask the council for 75, and then whatever we get, we work with.
That's been a motion and
Yeah.
Just need a
approved,
vote
right?
to go from 50 to 75.
Yeah, okay, all in
Or
favor?
what it is a request to council.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
So when we meet with the council today in our budget workshop, we will let them know that line 21 on page 28 has increased, or has a request to increase by $25,000.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. That's all I have for the budget. Did y'all have any questions as you were perusing through it and wrapping your head around it? Any of the line items brought concerns or questions?
I was wanting to know, the drone that was requested, the money for the drone, what is that to be used for, the drone?
So I do know that, and I don't know exactly this drone, because they've kind of gone, they've had various tactics on the drone, but after the event that we had on the front beach a couple of years ago, they requested a parked drone on top of the public safety building that could be deployed to surveil, anything that could be happening at the front beach. I'm assuming that it's the same style. I think because of that arrangement of it actually had a home permanently built in. I think it was too expensive. So I'm sure it's the same type of use of in the event of we have an event that they can get a better view of that event from the
A
air.
camera would not do as well? A
Not
permanent camera?
not of the aerial, not of kind of setting boundaries.
Basically, public safety.
Yes.
And that money's been spent, that's the one that has the overage on the budget.
That's-
Is there a new request for another drone?
No.
Okay, all right, so the money's spent, and now we're actually over, so we have to approve, at some point, we have to approve the overage.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
And I can get details on that. I'll ask specifically the use of that drone.
Chairman, you had any more questions?
Any more questions from the committee? No, great. I think we're great. Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Debbie.
So before CVB comes before us with what we have listed as their budget presentation, there were some lines of communication crossed. They said that they would be present for this meeting.
Okay.
And I thought they meant that they were going to present at this meeting. So they do not, they're still actively working on their budgets, just like we are. We are still actively working on ours. It's still moving pieces. So they do not have a budget to present us today, but they will present their budget at our next meeting scheduled in April. But they do have some information they can share with us in preparations of the budget that they are currently working on.
And we're great with that because I think part of the new path forward is we want to have more interaction with our friends from CBB because they are such a significant line item on our budget. So that we say the more the merrier. So we're glad to have you guys here, and then we'll make sure y'all have a line on the agenda for April.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Laurie Lynn Smith, and I have Chris Campbell with me today. We're with Explore Charleston. Thank you, Deborah. We're glad to be with you all today because it gave us a break from that budget. Our team is actually meeting with the Hearst folks today. We have been knee-deep in the budget and will be for the next couple of weeks. So thank you for a little bit of time this morning to talk about where we're headed. We do anticipate a similar formula when we come back to you in April, which will be, and we are who we are. We are a regional organization. We do have a heavy focus on our island communities, and thank you for saying, Park, that we have been really, really happy in the last couple of years to have a much closer dialogue with the Accommodations Tax Committee and Council as to what we can be doing specifically for Isle of Palms. So that's part of why we wanted to be here today, to talk about timing and to talk about some specific programming for Isle of Palms in the coming fiscal year. In the fiscal year that we're currently in, we were really proud to roll out the Community Enrichment Plan that was led by David in McNair. And I know we're excited about the Kusabo run that's coming up. So Chris and I are really here today to seek some feedback from you all, to talk about what you'd like to see in the coming fiscal year, not just here today in the meeting, but if you want to open up that dialogue and to reach out to us here in the next couple of weeks, we would like to hear that feedback from you. You know, that we've looked into VRBO. That's something that's been really successful for the island in the last 18 to 24 months. That's something that was really important to your former accommodations tax chairman, and that has been really fruitful for the island. We've also engaged with some streaming services, Sinclair Media. So those have been some new initiatives that we've been looking into, and not just looking into, but engaged with. So that being said, Chris, did you want to add anything before we just open up the floor for you all for some dialogue?
Thank you. Just quickly to piggyback off of that, Laurie covered a majority of it, and she spoke to some of those special projects that we've been proud to be a part of, and we'll look forward to expanding on in fiscal 26, because many of those are multi-year programs. I would say the community enrichment plan is a neat one, because it very much, you've heard us say in recent years, to have a successful tourism economy, you have to have, in our world, a tourism management component to what we do in order for the community to maintain the welcoming spirit and the vibe, you know, in the culture. So supporting that kind of initiative isn't always where people start when they think about destination promotion in our work, but it is a very important one. And the work that David has done with the community here is really a great example of how that can really take off. And I want to compliment everybody that's participated in that from a community perspective. Other communities we're working with are doing something similar now, but the model you all have created is taking it up a notch. The second piece I would just mention, the structure, Laurie said, will probably be the same. It very much continues now, shifting back to the marketing part of our world. We focus around marketing and advertising, media, earned media relations efforts, sales, visitor services, and then also the research, the market research component. And we've had some interaction on that as well. So maybe not now and in the formal context, but even offline, we can talk a little bit more about some of the numbers we're seeing through our marketing and how that plays in. Laurie mentioned we are confident in the number that Douglas and Deborah have presented from that revenue perspective, because we too are always watching those metrics through some of the same platforms that the Chamber mentioned in terms of key data. And we're always looking ahead as well. What's our pace? So happy to speak to that. I want to lift up specifically the sales world, because that's one of the places that I think, to some of the questions about the off-season, that's been a big part of our focus and will continue to be in the coming fiscal year. That group sales dynamic is really an important component to a healthy visitor economy as well. So that's a place our group sales team spends a lot of energy in supporting Wild Dunes and some other, it can affect your rentals properties as well, but the group sales component is a big one that is incorporated into our plans, as are the travel advisors. And we'll look forward to talking to you more about that in more detail. But the relationships we have, you've heard us say, that industry is not dead. It's growing, as a matter of fact. And those relationships have been very fruitful in terms of generating additional demand.
If you don't mind, I think too, Park, perhaps we could schedule something offline as well. Part of how what led to some of our conversations and decisions around VRBO was seeking to understand what you all were trying to accomplish, that we were, the space we were not in. You know, going into VRBO was not a decision that we had made on our own. That's a community by community and sometimes neighborhood by neighborhood decision. So us making that decision was something that we did together. So we'd love to sit down and have some conversation with you in the next couple of weeks. So let's plan to do that. And also, I just want to say, in the case of the chamber, that this is a great relationship. It's not an either-or situation. We love what we're seeing from the chamber. So that, for us, is a wonderful thing, and not an either-or, but an and situation, so.
You just asked my question for me because we put Zach on the spot when he was presenting, so I wanted to make sure that we were, I think that the two can commingle and benefit from one another. So I was a little bit awkward when we first had you both in the room at the same time, but it sounds like a both and is a viable situation here, so good. I welcome meeting with you all, right? I mean, I believe, and to the city staff, I want to make sure I'm understanding of this as the chair of the committee. I'm the liaison with this group on behalf of the committee, correct? So I'm free to meet with them. There's no
Yes. I would just
FOIA
ask
concerns.
that you let the staff know.
Okay.
And invite us, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. No, yeah, no problem. I just want to make sure I'm not doing anything off the record. Great.
Yeah.
Good. Any questions from the committee, Barb, Rebecca? Good. Okay, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are you all, so in our agenda for today, we had the consideration of our budget. We talked about presentation of their budget. You all could make a recommendation on the information that Deborah provided at this meeting. It's on the agenda that way if you chose. Or you could hold both. I mean, I think we do have a little bit of, we had a couple questions. But do you want to consider both of those in your April meeting, making a recommendation?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Great, okay. The last area is under miscellaneous, as for review of meeting dates for the remainder of the year. I think that some of the feedback that the committee has had, that we've been a little bit more ad hoc with the meetings, and we want to try to get something set up more regularly. For the committee, we want to make sure that we have our CVB partners engaged and involved, maybe not monthly or bi-monthly or however often we can meet, but we just want to have more, because it's difficult. We can't communicate via email. We can't get together without a quorum outside, or with a quorum outside of the group. So we feel like it's important. Maybe we have more brief meetings. I don't know, again, Douglas, this comes to you, if we're able to have meetings online, because as you can see, we're barely cresting quorums at times, and we've got people that I travel professionally. So could we do like every month, every other month in person, every other month on the alternating months online? Like, how does that work?
So I think you have to have you can only hold a meeting if a quorum is physically present.
Physically, so not online.
You can attend and you can participate online, but you can't actually meet unless you have a physical
on-site quorum.
On-site.
Okay.
Does that sound correct? Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't actually meet every month. We've never, have we?
No.
I mean, it seems like.
No, we haven't met since October, though. I mean, we need to meet more often than
Right.
every 6 months.
No, got it.
Right, so I mean, if we try to go to every other month or something along those lines, I think we need to step up the cadence, because we sit around wondering what's happening versus
Right.
knowing what's happening.
Yep.
Why don't we set, and particularly now, I mean, we have this budget stuff,
yeah.
why don't we set a meeting each month? And then once we get to a point where you feel like, there's not, and this happens with various committees where we'll just kind of meet until we get through the business at hand, and then we'll say, okay, are we okay to take off the next month? So why don't we just do that, because you're definitely going to meet in April.
Right, probably
We'll just
need to meet in May.
Plan on meeting in May. We
Right.
have reporting, I think, in June. So if we just plan to meet every month, and then, probably June-ish, we can take the temperature and see if we're good to start
Is that
skipping
fair?
some.
Yeah, and then we can step the cadence back in the quieter months.
Yeah.
It has
When we're all
been-
going to all the bars and restaurants.
Historically, it's been the second Wednesday. The
Yeah, I
second
mean-
Wednesday,
Yeah, I mean, I think we just need to lock it in, and so, again, for those of us who travel, I can be like, look, I can't be here, but we can still have a quorum, but if we're finding out a week beforehand or 2 weeks beforehand, that just makes it difficult. So
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday at 11 here.
Yep.
So that would have you on April 9th. 11 a.m.
That,
Nope.
that is court days, so
Can we,
And what time?
we can make it earlier?
Either, yeah, I mean, as long as we have a time on the calendar, we should be able to
What
work
time
around
does
it.
court start?
at 12.
Oh, at 12.
So would you prefer 10 or would you prefer 9?
10:30 if you can do an hour, 10:30 is fine.
If,
Do you want
I
to
mean,
say
yeah, I think 10 is fine, and then one of my goals will be that we'll set a tight agenda with you guys. And like today was long, and it should be long, right?
Yeah.
But we really should aim for an agenda that we can get done in an allotted amount of time. So if it's an hour, I don't want to cut anybody off necessarily, but I think the more often we meet, the more efficient we can
Yeah.
be with our meetings, and it's not like, oh my God, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. That just went on official record, didn't it? Great.
So April 9th at 10, and we'll just try to lock in that second Wednesday at 10 until we.
And timing, the time of day should be a little bit flexible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got other events or whatever else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Everybody okay with that? Good. Rob, you good with that?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's all the business on the agenda for today. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
so move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
offer it at 10:20?